Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful week thus far. My name is Hilario Perez. I am a hospice social worker and a full time student at the University of Texas at Arlington. Today, I'm here to talk to you about a policy that's very near and dear to my heart. It's one that it's not only important to those that it affects, but it's one that I feel that should be heard. The policy I'm referring to is the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978. As you can assume from the title, the policy has to deal with Native American children. Before I start talking about the policy, I want to provide a general background as to why the policy was enacted. Around the early 1900s, American Indian children were being taken from their homes. The government wanted to Americanize them and to acculturate them into traditional English society. They did this by taking food and supplies away from Indian families. They stopped hiring Indians and Native Americans in the fields and in society. One way to get all these things back was for the families and the parents to agree to send their children to boarding schools, not wanting to starve or die or whatnot. They agreed to their demands. At these boarding schools, the children were taught how to read, how to write. They taught them traditional English values, traditions, and beliefs. They even began dressing them in regular clothing. They basically pretty much wanted to erase any last inch of Indian culture that they had in them. Unfortunately, a lot of these children suffered from depression, anxiety, and some even ran away from these boarding schools. Some even committed suicide as a result. This went on for quite some time till about the early 1950s, 1960s. During this time, social workers and other agencies began to also remove children from their homes. They did this because they did not know, they were not aware of the traditional Native American cultures. In the Native American culture, the tribes help take care of the kids, of the children, and so social workers felt that this was some form of abandonment since the parents were not home. A lot of the Indian tribes at the time were living off the grid, and so therefore did not have a traditional kitchen, lights, and so social workers felt that this was a form of not having a proper living arrangements, so they started removing the kids. It was during this time that 25 to 30% of Native American children were being removed from their homes, and a staggering 90% of those children were being placed with non-Native Indian tribes. This caused Congress to notice the discrepancies, and therefore they decided to take action. Thus, the Indian Child Welfare Act was enacted. While there are many provisions to the act itself, the main intent is to protect the best interest of the Indian children and to promote the stability and security of Indian tribes and families. The law applies to all states, and it mandates that any time there is a custody hearing or a child foster placement involving a Native American child, the courts must follow specific guidelines and regulations. These regulations include a child must first be placed with family members from within their own family or non-related extended family. If no one is available, then the second choice is placing them with members of their own tribe. The third option is to place them with members of different tribes, and the last resort being placing them with non-native foster families. So, who does this cover, the policy? This covers Indian children involved, of course, in a custody proceeding. According to the policy, Indian children are defined as being those under the age of 18, being unmarried, and belonging to federally recognized tribes. Some of the advantages of the Indian Child Welfare Act are that it keeps families together, which is the most important. It also preserves Native American cultures, customs, and traditions, which again is very important, not just to the tribes themselves, but of course to society in general. Um, and it also gives tribes the opportunity to be involved in decision making when it has to do with foster care with Indian children. So why is this important to the community? It's important because Native Americans reside all over the United States. They're not just in one geographical location. It's also important for professionals such as social workers, as it allows them to see that there are different cultures and people have different traditions, beliefs, and so it's important for all of us to keep that in mind when dealing with the general public. With that said, although the policy has done many, many great things, there are some discrepancies that should be fixed, I believe. One of the main ones that I have seen, and that according to my research, is that this applies only to certain federally approved tribes. So not every Native American tribe can take advantage of this policy. Another thing that is still needs to be fixed is that to this day, Native Americans continue to see the greatest disproportionality in the foster care system. They're continuing to be placed with non-Native American families. Another thing that should be improved that I saw is that there's no actual auspice to which this policy falls under. There's not a special government that takes over it, and so it should fall under something. And then the last thing that I believe is that there is actual no funding for the policy. A lot of the money that comes through is through donations and stuff like that. So I feel that in the future we should definitely look into this policy and update it to current times. As we can see, the Act, like I said, has done many, many great things, but it still has room to grow and room for improvement. Now that you know a little bit about the Act, I hope that you can help spread the word along with me and other social workers so that this policy can, get going. And it's not just important to the Native Americans, but it's also important to our American culture and our society. And so, like I said, now that you know a little bit about it, I hope that you can go out and spread the word. Thank you.